Hello everyone, I'm Cole from the Kingdom. Recently there have been talks about a new Mass Effect game in development, but we're not sure whether it's a sequel to Andromeda or something else. Personally, I want more Andromeda. I don't want to get into the gaming politics of all this right now, let's talk about why we're here. I have some ideas for an Andromeda sequel that I want to share. First, there is the question of whether Ryder will make a return as the main protagonist. I'm on the fence about it. If we get a new protagonist, I am hoping we can have an origin story system. If not like Dragon Age Origins, then at least like the first Mass Effect. For multiple playable races, I've said before, that is a massive undertaking to write and voice act. I think a better solution is to have short stories featuring playable aliens in DLC packs, which I talk about in my video for Andromeda DLC, which I will link in the description. I also think there's some potential in multiplayer, but that's getting a whole other video. So for now, I want to say just human protagonists. Now for how the game actually starts, the very first thing we do is go save the Quarian Ark. There is still misinformation floating about, and so I want to reiterate that no Quarian Ark DLC was ever planned. And the book did not explain what happened to the Ark in Andromeda. That tease at the end was not for DLC, but for the future of the plot in Andromeda. So it's been about 8 months to a year since the last game ended. We are an exploration team heading out to new planets where Volts were reactivated following the activation of Meridian. You're part of the new Helios government established after the first game. You know, the government that encompasses the Initiative and all its allies, similar to the Systems Alliance. Some possible names are the Helios Coalition, Helios Federation or Confederacy, the Helios Union, you get the idea. Now we don't know the Quarian Ark is where we're heading until after we get there and pick up a local distress beacon. So it's not meant to go out of the system, it's only there for ships that find their way there on their own. Once we get to the system, we immediately figure out why they sent the message to warn us away at the end of the first game. Your ship falls under attack from remnant defenses that are still operational. Taking heavy damage, we are forced down to the surface of the planet, where the Quarian Ark has also crashed. Following the distress beacon, we get close to where they are, and we go meet them where we meet Senanir, freaking awesome Quarian from Annihilation, and he explains what's going on. The Ark may have hit the Scourge, but I'm honestly not sure what the Scourge would do to a ship traveling at FTL. The drive core wouldn't have engaged if anything was in the ship's path, however the Scourge only appeared after they left the Milky Way, so they obviously wouldn't have detected that. I think the most likely scenario is that the Ark was on a collision course with the Scourge, which only would have been detectable once they got closer to their destination. The ship's VI was programmed to awaken critical personnel in certain emergency situations like this, so it would have done that. The ship's VI may have brought the ship out of FTL itself, or the awakened personnel would do so. I think I've also read somewhere that as soon as they reached Helios, they were supposed to come out of FTL anyway and awaken key personnel. Then they would assess the situation to make sure everything was okay, then redirect to the Nexus. However, even though I'm pretty sure I heard or read that somewhere, I can't find a source on that. Although it does seem likely. Alright, bottom line is, they come out of FTL in a system where remnant defenses are still active. Maybe a series of orbital defense cannons around the planet. Maybe the cannons floated all over the system. Though many were probably hit by the Scourge, so was Key to Sierra, and it was still operational. The defenses were offline, but other remnant tech still had active defenses, so it makes sense that at least some orbital cannons were still online. The Quarians were hit, and also possibly by the Scourge, but that's not necessary, and ended up being forced to execute an emergency landing. During this is when they sent out the warning to the rest of the Initiative, knowing anyone who tried to go to them would fall into the same trap. Bear in mind, they don't know that these cannons are fully automated. As far as they know, an intelligent race occupies the system and is shooting at them. Fortunately, thanks to Ryder activating Meridian, this planet they crash on is livable for most of the races on board the Ark, with the exception of the Volus, who needed their pressurized suits, and the Quarians, whose immune systems were too weak and couldn't eat the same food as everyone else. They needed a way to get off-world without triggering the orbital cannons. The Pathfinders and their teams would set out to study the Remnant, but the Quarians' AI was shackled as all hell, so it wasn't as useful as the human SAM, or even other races for that matter. I think the Drell also had a SAM, but since the Quarians were running the show, it probably also would have been shackled. Investigation was slow and didn't bear much fruit. Combined with the whole business that happened at Annihilation, many people are not too happy with the current leadership. There are a number of directions to go from here. Full-on mutiny, although we already did that on the Nexus, or groups split off and try to go do their own thing. They get what they can from the Ark to get set up and maybe start farming, but they aren't sticking around with the leadership while they scramble to figure out a way off-planet. Or we could say that most are still asleep, and the only ones awake are those necessary. This is an attempt to preserve food and supplies. That's the one I would go with. Whichever way, the player character and their team show up, fall into the same trap, meet Senanir, who should probably be a squad mate for the game, if not just a major character. I mean, we need a male Quarian squad mate. Senna's already there, he's a great character, he's single, peanut butter, jelly, and bread. It's perfect. So we're here, and the Ark is still stranded, little to no progress has been made. So we have to help find a way to get past the orbital defenses. Now if you do end up being Ryder, or even another Pathfinder, you just go to a huge remnant facility and shut down the turrets remotely. If you're not a Pathfinder, there are a few ways this can go. Option 1, the player character has to convince the Quarians to unshackle their AI. Because of the way this AI was being treated, that could go very wrong. Option 2, Sam, PB, and maybe some others have developed a program or VI that enables anyone who has it to interface with the Remnant. Not fully, it essentially just opens doors and activates consoles. Or turns things on or off. It does not have the full capabilities of Sam, it's just meant for exploration teams like ours, or science teams studying Remnant technology. It's just a basic program that does basic things, it probably doesn't even have a personality. We can say that your exploration team does have a VI that helps with planetary mapping and logging anomalies, that essentially serves to help you find alien tech. I have some more detailed ideas for that, but it's not totally necessary and doesn't matter much right now. Well, you use this Remnant activation program to enter the main facility. It's probably not right next to where the Ark landed. You've got to use a shuttle or something to get there. Remnant on the planet are still a problem though, so maybe this would be a good time to give us our new ground vehicle if we have one, or even give us a flying vehicle, though I can totally understand why they might not want to do that. Well, one way or another we get to a Remnant tower thing. We fight our way in, solve some puzzles that are a little different than the first game's puzzles, and get to our destination. Maybe we shut them off, maybe we find a way to mess with their programming so they attack each other, or just don't notice us. Maybe we blow it up and hope that solves the problem. Well, one way or another, we solve the problem, and the orbital cannons no longer pose a threat. Aquila Sia can finally reunite with the rest of the initiative, though it probably isn't space-worthy, and we'll need other ships to come retrieve the colonists. So for now, I think that's where I'll wrap things up. Be sure to let me know what you think of this idea in the comments section, and let me know if you want to see more videos like this. Be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you later.